Center, and I'm really encouraged by the yesterday's and today's discussion. And we discussed a lot of challenges. I'd like to mention two more, just to elaborate the points being made tonight. First, regarding the Minsk agreement, let's imagine that before the new year, Russians will release all the prisoners. Putin will give a real order to stop fire, and then he will withdraw weapons, heavy weapons, on the behind the lines agreed in the Minsk agreement. And my question, mostly to the Ukrainian representatives, is what Ukraine is going to do, because then all the whole pressure will put on Ukraine. My second challenge that I'd like to mention is more, say, strategic, because we already discussed about delivering strategic defeat on Russia, which I fully support the idea. But, okay, let's imagine again, because as we know, every time it takes us by surprise, that Russia will face real disintegration, like Soviet Union did 25 years ago, and then Ukraine will get Donbass, will get Crimea one day, and Georgia will get South Ossetia and Abkhazia, Moldova will get Transnistria, and the United States will get this big headache with nuclear weapons, and perhaps Caucasus region, and China trying to get its bite from Russian territory. So I'd like to hear your comments on these possible challenges. Thank you.
First of all, your question, what would be if this temporary occupied territory would be back under authority of Ukrainian government? And this is not a new question. There is quite a lot of discussion going on in Ukrainian society about it, and among different organizations working and helping for the people in a humanitarian crisis. And I would say that quite a lot of fear are about it, because the question is that, oh, you know, it would be very hard to integrate Donetsk, Lugansk, and Yasanovata, and so on and so on. I can tell from, at least from the perspective of the humanitarian organization who is working with IDPs for 4 years already, and we give assistance for almost 500,000 of people. I think it would be no major problems or challenges with integrating back Donbass. Would be only the question is what would be the approach to this? Why not many big challenges with integration? Because, as already I mentioned, is per 1 month, almost 1 million crossing of the front line. It means these people are not separated from the reality of Ukraine. They're already quite integrated. So this is just to coming back to the same space. From one side. From another side, it would be important to have very clear approach, which means that on that territory there is quite a lot of criminals who really did crimes. So these people need to be take responsibility for what they've done. Because again, there is a lot of discussions. There is that on Donbass there is quite a lot of people who has different political visions, and there is no problem with this. The problem is when the minority, like 70% or something, who are in favor of Russian Federation in Donbass are still there. The problem is when they, instead of protecting their political rights on elections, they take a weapon, and this is a crime that should be persecuted. If this approach of justice and truth would be really kept, I do not see a really big problem with integration of this territory at all.
Я також думаю, що проблеми не буде з інтеграцією, тому що хуже, ніж зараз, гірше, ніж зараз. Після повернення України туди не буде точно. І люди це однозначно побачать. Тому що прийде закон, прийде прийдуть зв'язки родинні, я не знаю, гарантії якісь, бачення просто свого завтрашнього дня. Тому що сьогодні там основна проблема навіть не мілітарна, а психологічна. Люди не знають, в якій країні вони живуть, в якій країні вони будуть жити завтра. Тому будь-яка визначеність в цьому питанні, особливо якщо повернеться Україна, яку вони знають, що це таке, це буде однозначно позитивний момент.
I would like to add, I'm Ukrainian. I think hard work. First, de-occupation. It means the powerful, highly developed Ukrainian army must go to Ukrainian border and stay there, and to be a guarantee it's really happened. Next, demilitarization, taking out all weapons, which is now in the people who are there. And can be probably naturalized like Ukrainian people, but they are not. Next, demining. How many mines do we have there? Nobody knows. Next, punishing the criminals and amnesty to those who are not the criminals but under the influence of the criminals. And reconciliation, talking from many points of view, and humanitarian aid and economical development, and probably in a few years, 5, 7, 10, who knows, a full democracy. It means election. A way of hard work, if it's happened. But now we have to work very hard, including international community, this thing to happen.
We had two panelists also wanted to jump in, just very quick comments.
Well, I'll just jump in on a very quick comment also on China. You mentioned China. So we did not talk about, but China is also another actor that's coming in the region. And very slowly, very hiddenly. And I think although China and Russia could be, political partners, from the perspective of economic, they're not partners. So just hearing about, the freight train that goes from Ukraine that bypasses Russia, that's important. But also the investments of China in the region are increasing very, very fast. So I think one needs also a strategy to look at China, not just at Russia, but long term also what will be the role of China, economic and potentially political in the region.
What a brief remark about the possibility of the reintegration and the challenges the metropolitan states could face during the reintegration of the de facto state. I think it's Georgia, for example, facing these challenges, not so much Ukraine, because in the Abkhaz conflict we have two dimensions of the conflict, the geopolitical and ethnic. We can diminish the role of Russia, but then still the ethnic questions remain. Nothing to say about the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, for example. I cannot imagine how difficult it could be to reintegrate Armenians back into the authoritarian Azerbaijan. So definitely Ukraine is placed better in that sense.
I have quick questions to actually three. Oh, sorry.
I had a question.
Oh my God, sorry.
Who's going to pay for all this?
Yes.
Who's going to be responsible for war crimes, for torture, for labor camps, for rape, for dismembering teenagers, lopping off arms and hands? Where will be the responsibility for that? And if there is no responsibility, what is the message? What's the consequence?
Do you have an answer to that?
Tomorrow.
Sure, I have an answer.
Let's hear it.
I know who should be responsible. Will the world step up to that? That will not happen with Ukraine alone. That will have to be an issue of sanctions again or continued. You're not going to have voluntary payment. What did Putin do after the fall of the Soviet Union? What about the crimes at that time? Who paid? Was there ever a trial? We, unfortunately, ourselves pressed Yeltsin not to open up that issue. What will happen now?
Okay, I have quick questions actually to three panelists. First one is goes to Dmitry. We know that actually Moldova was generous to Transnistria. using the pipeline, paying pensions, providing passports, access to the EU, allows to export through Moldova, education, everything, yeah? And you mentioned, absolutely, I think legitimately, that the hope is living in this region. So the question would be, what out of this list actually worked for good or for bad up to now, for this hope? I had a question to Valbona, provocative one, and to Nona as well. It's true that we have to reform and we have to develop the economy and we have to build the resilience, including economic resilience. But does anyone consider, realize and support that building this economic resilience to the big extent would mean to revise the relationships, economic relationships with Russia, and even more, the status quo that we have with the property, including critical infrastructure in Ukraine, because it's not a secret that a lot of critical infrastructure in Ukraine is owned by Russian oligarchs. And whether we can build resilience, economic resilience, having an enemy that holds the critical infrastructure. Thank you.
I guess I will start. I'm not an expert on Transnistria. In fact, I've been keeping away from when I was in government. I was keeping away from the subject because it's like the biggest the greatest job security you can have. Nothing happens, and and you always have meetings and everything. But it's true there are incentives in place, and in my personal opinion, they are legitimate and necessary. What we failed at perhaps is creating is actually doing a good job on the Moldovan controlled side of the river. It's necessary to. How can you not remain open to education, to businesses, to the people? I mean, that's how you keep the people together. Yeah, the contacts. What we did not do is become attractive enough for Transnistria, so that these people-to-people connections actually create a certain positive pressure, if you want, on the regime in Tiraspol. I don't know if it's everyone's opinion. I'm really not an expert on Transnistria, but I think we should not be looking at punishing the people for ending up in a separatist territory. It doesn't matter what language they speak and what's their ethnicity.
Okay, thank you, Oksana. I fully understand your concern, and that's why for a sustainable economic development, you need strong institutions. As it is right now, not only in Ukraine, but in other transitional countries, you have a rent-seeking economy, which is controlled by, monopolies and people that are, have the political connections. There was a very good study that came out a few months ago from CISS that showed that looked at Russia and the economic influence. So when the economic influence surpasses 12% of the GDP of the country, that the political influence starts to be very visible. So that is a big issue, and I fully understand that. That's why I think we have to aim for an economic rule of law. You cannot start economic reforms without having a strong rule of law, transparency, accountability, strong institutions. I know you are concerned about the privatization process. The way it has happened in the past, it has only fueled more corruption and political influence of foreign actors. So no privatization without having that kind of transparency in place in order to be sustainable. But also, I'd like also to be a little bit provocative. Ukraine in the 90s was richer than Poland. Ukraine was the country that has achieved the highest foreign assistance in Europe. from the transition countries. So where do Ukraine stand today and where Poland stands? So I think it has to do a lot with internal reforms. And Russia, not only in the region, but you can see Russia also in the Western Balkans playing a opportunistic, spoiler. I come from the region, and you can understand. So where is the vacuum of power, where there are weak institutions, where is high level of corruption, that's used as a tool for actors such as Russia or others. So I think the key word is strengthening institutions starts from internal reforms.
Allow me to make one observation. I was negotiating with the Japanese several years ago. A lot of people don't like negotiating with the Japanese for a bunch of reasons. I love them. They're prepared, they're ready, they're detailed. And I'm sorry. I had a question over dinner with one of the Japanese fellows asking them, how are they able to achieve the so-called Japanese miracle after World War II? Did you give people incentives? How did they work so hard? How were they so diligent and disciplined? And he said the government didn't do anything. He said every person in society felt a sense of responsibility of rebuilding the country. They saw it as a matter of national pride. They took that in their own hands and they did it. The distinction between Poland and Ukraine, as the example was raised, was Poland's national ethos, its identity, was not destroyed. Ukraine's was. A large part of Ukraine still suffers through the Stockholm Syndrome. We have to understand some of the reasons, and that is one of the critical reasons. If Ukrainian oligarchs felt a sense of national identity and unity with the nation that they are a part of, that they are, I am sure that the level of corruption, its persistence, and its tenacity would not be as great as it is. National ethos, the sense of identity of who Ukrainians are, and their sense of responsibility for the future, not just for their immediate nuclear family, but for the nation as a whole, is a massive, massive ball and chain around Ukraine's neck. And it was not self-imposed, tragically enough. We all know the history of that. So, just a comment on that one. Thank you very much.
Very shortly. I totally agree with Valbona. You have to do your homework. You have to carry out the economic reforms, and the EU will stand by you on this. It's enough not to ask the help in military terms. On the rest, the EU is there. I'm pretty sure about this. Important is to put the money to the right direction. I think what the EU should do is to rethink about its economic relationship with Russia, but yet this is another topic of the discussion.
Yeah, the gentleman in the back.
My name is Nathan Khazin. I'm a proudly member of the Ukrainian Rozvedka. I'd like to ask you one of the issues been mentioned. We're looking for a solution. I'd like to bring back down. Because we are in this holy place, and I am as a religious person, I do believe in words. I'd like to ask you, what is the words of solution you're thinking, how it could be stopped, how aggressor cannot be defeated no more? Thank you.
Good question for the last one.
I'm not sure I fully understood your question. Can you?
Word.
The words.
Yes, words to me is a spiritual thing. Comes. What is that solution?
What are the words of the solution?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so, the solution is, as I think has been discussed here, is to have a state that is governed in such a way that it is prosperous, that it is secure, that regardless of the fact that you have a nuclear superpower that is your neighbor, that is occupying a large chunk of your territory, that you are confident enough that over the long term you will survive and you will prosper, whereas they will be in decline. We used to talk a lot about trying to lengthen Ukraine's runway and shorten Russia's. We haven't achieved that yet. But that is the solution to the conflict in the East, is to ensure that over the medium to long term, that Ukraine survives and prospers and becomes stronger vis-a-vis Russia. Because eventually there will come a time where that is reality. I'm pretty confident.
Це питання, яке питання? Що маю?
Я сказав українському.
Дуже важке питання, тому що дуже комплексне, мабуть. Я думаю, що якщо санкції, то це, мабуть, мають бути такі санкції, які вводяться на дуже короткий час, але вони мають такі бути, щоб Путіна не було можливості жити з ними довго. Якщо ми кажемо про звільнення цих територій, то тут, я думаю, Захід має забезпечити лише одне питання – не втручання Росії у внутрішні справи України. І тоді Україна сама справиться з цією проблемою. Якщо ми кажемо про реформи в Україні, про корупцію, все інше, то давайте не забувати, що ці питання також пов'язані з Донбасом, з вирішенням проблеми на Донбасі. Тому що коли будь-яка реформа, це передусім це питання довіри народу до своєї влади. Сьогодні такої довіри немає, тому що наша влада каже, що у нас немає війни, наша влада намагається торгувати з агресором, а спонукають нашу владу до цього, в принципі, Захід, тому що він каже, що потрібно виконувати Мінські угоди. Тобто розставити все на свої місця і все вирішиться.
Yes, stronger Ukraine and more coordinated transatlantic policy toward the Eastern neighborhood.
She knows dinner is soon. But our goal is to get you out of here on time, so short is good.
Well, this will be short. I'm not sure I'm going to respond directly to that question, but I think I'll respond close enough to it. And I'll put it in the form of a wish. And the wish is that as much as everybody's been talking about Ukraine and the weaknesses and the pluses in American Western policy and everything else, I hope that everybody in the West understands a certain multiplication factor that occurs when Western conduct, behavior, activity, or inactivity vis-a-vis Ukraine, how that translates in the eyes of American foreign policy and security interests globally with other regions, whether it's in the Middle East, North Korea, Venezuela, who the hell knows what's going to happen in Latin America. So that from the standpoint of American policymakers and defense planning, they understand the ripple effect of what they do or do not do in Ukraine has impacts elsewhere. Forgetting about the words of the Budapest Memorandum itself, the wording, the language, that really in one way is irrelevant. What's irrelevant is, what is relevant, is that the United States pressed on Ukraine to surrender its nuclear arsenal. Ukraine was invaded. Yes, there is Western involvement, assistance, and everything else. We're blessed with people like the general here, with Mr. Carpenter and everybody else. But in the perception, the gross optics are Ukraine is going it alone. When you look at the cost and the price of surrendering a nuclear arsenal, the issue of Western credibility and the predictability factor has been ratcheted up, whether it's baseless or with a foundation. The credibility factor is such that other tyrants around the world have been emboldened. Rightly or wrongly, that is the consequence that I see globally for the United States when you tie it to the situation in Ukraine.
Well, thank you. I think success of Ukraine, it's not only for Ukraine, it's success of the West. And I think the very reason that we have so many representatives here, international partners, being here around the room means that Ukraine is not alone. Ukraine has many partners that are supporting it, but really credibility of reforms is key to that support. And I think Ukraine has already made the choice. It made the choice during the Maidan protests. It was not protests were not against the free trade agreement. Many people will not understand that. That was a choice towards, Western liberal values, democracy. And my final point is that the biggest capital, the biggest resource for Ukraine is its people, young people that love this country. So we spoke about issues, problems, challenges, but I'm optimistic about the future of the country.
If you're speaking about three sacral words, I have three words. First one is truth, justice, and solidarity. Truth, we need to really recognize and tell what is in effect and recognize these facts. Second, justice, and the justice concerning the crimes done not only in Donbass but also in Crimea, and also I really appreciate mentioning this Budapest memorandum and what is really behind this, because this also should be part of justice. Definitely the scenario in Ukraine would be absolutely different in 2014 if Ukraine would have a nuclear weapon. It's clear. And solidarity with the people there, worldwide solidarity, and in this case I really have a very painful feeling because according to the need assessment we have 2.3 million of vulnerable people who needs assistance, humanitarian assistance. And UN humanitarian response plan for this year was 217 millions of euros, means more or less how many? Less than 200 euros per person. This is a worldwide solidarity with the people, vulnerable people in Ukraine. And what is even worse in this year it was financed on 17%. Next year it would be worse. So, what solidarity really we are speaking about? Thanks.
Just I guess to conclude from my side at least. Safety, security. You need a strong state. To have a strong state, you need strong institutions and rule of law. To have that, you need to it's based on my judgment about my country, and I'm sure it's the same here. You need to get rid of three things from the public service, and that's indifference, incompetence, and corruption. It's as simple as that.
And citation from one of the panel today: "Don't leave unhappy nation behind. They fire back, and we're gonna do." We are happy with our independence and sovereignty, and we're gonna fight for this. And a few words: to survive and to develop. This is our destiny, and we must do it together with the world, because Ukrainian questions, answering to this in the democratic way, it means saving the world of democracy. Welcome to democracy. Linda, thank you very much for helping me.
I don't think survive is positive enough. We want Ukraine to thrive. We want you to
First, you have to survive.